let's talk to this, because there may be people who are watching,
Mhm.
brothers, sisters, who are in, this type of kind of sex desert marriage, if you like, where, one partner, either in a situation where one partner just wants it more than the other, but they are still active, or they are actually more or less inactive. And, it's not something that they've agreed on. It's not something that they're both mutually, fine with. One partner wants it and the other doesn't.
Mm.
Let's say, what can we say to people in that situation? What do you advise them to do if they find themselves in that situation?
Are we talking about regularly not wanting it or every now and again not wanting it? Are you
No, no,
talking
no, not wanting it regularly. Like, so when I say like a dead bedroom, so this couple has been 3, 6 months, a year, 2 years without having sex.
one thing I always say, and it's going to sound really cliche, I'll start with the disclaimer of I don't do couples therapy
Mm,
because I don't speak to men in a
sure.
vulnerable setting. And
Mm,
that's because to truly be vulnerable with your therapist, you have to be, and some Muslim ladies do see male
mm.
clients. I'm just not one that does, because I'm just like, there's
Yeah,
lots
sure.
of people out there to do it. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because it's a therapy answer, because
Right.
there are
Okay.
usually very creative ways that they can physically explore each other without
Hmm.
even actually having intercourse if they don't want to have intercourse with each other. Some of the problems that came up recently was one of the ladies was saying that even if her husband gives her an orgasm, not through penetration, and then he's like, right, I'm going to roll over and go to sleep, she's still not happy with that. She's saying that she feels like is still used by that, even though his goal was to give her pleasure. So I'm like, it's usually the other way around, right?
Hold on a minute. What? Hold on. Wait. So he pleased you, didn't get anything himself necessarily, but he pleased you, but you feel used. Make that make sense.
I
What?
wish, yeah, I wish I could make it make sense, because it's really rooted in self-worth, right? So,
Yeah.
so she's obviously telling herself a story
It's a
of,
story. Yeah.
and we all have these self stories. I know
Yes.
you're a big talker of this,
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
talker of this, mashallah. May Allah preserve you, even
I
just for that,
mean,
mashallah. Um, because the stories we tell ourselves are the loudest ones we hear every day, right?
mm,
And if she's going to sleep feeling not, this sounds even more cliche, not enough for some reason, like, why is
mm,
he just leaving me? Like, why does he not want to have sex with me, is what he's saying, as opposed to
right.
why is he just
Mm,
sorting me out, type of thing, so that
mm.
he can then go to sleep. Well,
Has
depending
it is
on,
the question in her mind, why does he not want it? Is it that he doesn't want me? He doesn't desire me? Why does he not desire me? Because it's all very well, me getting my peace, but why
yeah.
does he not want to have his peace with me? Why doesn't he not want me? Do you think that that might be part of it?
Yes, I definitely think that's part of it. And for me, my advice would be for her to work on herself a little bit about
Hmm.
how she values herself, what her self-worth is. And I
Mm,
know, like, with like the coaching industry exploding and stuff like that, it sounds really cliche, but the reason she doesn't have to do it through coaching, she could do it through therapy. The reason I'm mentioning it is because we don't even realize, I won't say exactly what it was. We don't realize what, for example, a parental statement or an
mm,
inaction from a parent in the formative years, 0 to 7, actually leaves like invisible imprints on us for the rest of our lives, right? And
hmm,
this doesn't
hmm,
mean we should all hate our parents and we should resent them and that they're all toxic. No,
mm.
I actually believe most parents do the best that they could with the tools they had
Agree
intellectually,
with you. Agree with
financially,
you on that.
emotionally,
Yeah.
and if they didn't make the best choice for you for something you needed at the time, it's
Yeah.
okay to forgive them and accept that you might need to work on some stuff yourself.
Yeah.
And that's basically why so many women, mashallah, and it is great to see a movement of this, to be quite honest with you, are moving into a place of personal development. And you do a lot of work in this too, right?
Mm,
Through
mm,
writing and things. Because it really is important that lots of us were raised in a society where children are seen and not heard, right?
mm,
And
mm,
that was like a common theme for a lot of us. To be heard and even hear your own truth back to yourself
mm,
is empowering in itself. It gives you
mm,
permission to say, actually, that's not going to be my truth anymore, kind of, in some way,
mm,
shape, or form, and
mm,
helps you intellectually and cognitively break through that, right? So the reason I'm mentioning that is because when she's in a place, if a woman can stand with a hand on her heart, in my opinion, and say, I know what I am and I know what I'm not. And we had this recently over a lady who was being slandered over something, and I'm sure that was to do with some potential kind of like marriage opportunity. I said, put your hand on your heart and take a deep breath and tell yourself you know who you are and who you're not. And Allah knows who you are and who you're not. Take another 3 deep breaths, because there's not a thing that person can say about you on this planet that will, you know, bereft you of anything
Take that
that
away.
Allah has decided for you, you know, or increase you in anything. You know, literally everything down to reputation is with Allah every single second of it. And we
SubhanAllah.
forget, don't we, right? Because life is so fast, social media is so loud and all that kind of stuff. So the reason I'm mentioning that is we've got lots of information constantly bombarding us. She may have seen or been told at some point in her journey that, you know, a husband's not interested in his wife, if that, and it's usually a go-to, most women would presume that, about having a really open conversation. And if he looks you in your big brown eyes and says, I love you and I'm just washed out right now, but I want to make sure you get what you need, is a very different exchange to, you know, I'm just sorting you out and then I'm going to roll over and fall asleep because I feel like I've ticked a box. Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense. And I think something else that comes up for me is something that I'm really big on, which is reframing. Because like you said, we're all telling ourselves stories all the time. And obviously in this case, she's telling herself a story that makes her feel frustrated and angry and resentful of him, right? And whatever that story is, whether the story is that I'm just a checkbox for him, he doesn't want me, you know, I'm not good enough, or, you know, he's this and that, or he always does whatever it is, the story isn't helping to make good sense of the situation, because you can always assume good or assume bad. And in this case, if she's angry with him, I'm assuming that she's making, you know, it's a bad assumption. Okay, so she's feeling some kind of way.
But likewise, sorry, on that point, you can still kiss her, tell her he loves her, and is she happy? Is she ready to rest now? There are things that you can say.
He can say, but he's not the client. No. He's not the one we're talking to. So my focus is always on what can the person I'm speaking to do to make this situation better for herself. Obviously, I would think that if a person can reframe, because for me, the frame for me is, Alhamdulillah, he cares enough about me to at least take care of me. You know what I mean? Because he could not. And for me, that's the fact of the matter, is that he could not. He could just say, I'm not in the mood, and just roll over without doing anything and go to sleep. And plenty of men, I'm sure, would do that. So for me, the frame that is helpful to me if I'm in that situation is, this guy cares about me. He must care about me, because he's not even getting anything out of this, and still he is still taking care of my needs. Alhamdulillah, let me cuddle him. Let me make him see that I appreciate him. I'm grateful, and I want to be close to him, and that's it. That would be one way for me. I think that the reframing would.
It's brilliant what you said there, because I never did coaching training, but I seem to have this knack for being able to reframe things with gratitude, but not in like a toxic positivity kind of way. I never give people positive affirmations that they don't already own, type of thing. That is a ground that I don't go to. It's not what I do. It's I sit with the raw, what is it right now? And then we clear that. Let's just say it how it is, you know. And sometimes that, you know, doesn't include things that you would expect most Muslim women to say, and that's great, because it's coming out somewhere in a controlled space where it's safe. The reason I'm mentioning that is because when you just mentioned that then about gratitude, it's like, Allah knew I needed that today. And even though it's not everything I wanted, it is what I needed, you know. And it's that. And if you are rolling over, for Allah, oh Allah, for you I live and I die, is what we should be saying to ourselves. We're rolling over onto that pillow, right? It's about, you know, having these wonderful exchanges and trying to fall asleep with a heart with zero rancor in it right for anybody
Yeah.
is the
Yeah.
goal. I'm
Yeah.
digressing a bit spiritually there, but it's like an active goal
No,
of
but
my own.
it's true. It is true. And I think, I think if that person, that man, if she was able to be in that space of, like you said, I got what I needed today. Thank you, Allah, alhamdulillah, and hugged him and thanked him, then at another point, maybe she could say something like what you said, I would really love it if after we could have a cuddle before you go to sleep. You know what I mean? And in that space, he's not in a defensive, but what more do you want? Like, are you never satisfied kind of thing? Because he knows that she does appreciate his effort. She sees that he's trying. She appreciates it. She's grateful. And this is just a tweak. I don't know.
No, it's true. And it's definitely, I'm sure there are some people out there listening to this who may well give that exact thing a go, because physical fulfillment for a woman is a really important thing, and we pretend walking around veiled like we do that. Like, I used to work with non-Muslim colleagues in public service, and they used to say things to me like, the women especially, how could you kind of do that? Because I used to make it very safe for people to ask me the questions they'd probably be too scared to ask everybody else. Like, any question you're scared to ask anybody else, ask me. And they used to say things like, how do you feel though about being part of a religion where you're going to get cursed basically if you say no to your husband? You've just got to be on tap for him all the time. And I said, do you know something that you might not be as familiar with is that my husband's not really supposed to approach me unless his intention is to satisfy my needs first before his own. And if he hasn't got the energy, lest he make me feel used, he's not supposed to approach me at all. And they were like, now that's not a wajib, it's not an obligation, it is a sunnah, but nonetheless, for the people who love the sunnah as much as they love the obligatory acts, they will make that an active intention, right? A verb, so to speak, of a sunnah instead of one that's just spoken about. And their jaws used to be on the floor like, seriously? And I'm like, yeah. So I'm like trying to break down and debunk these stereotypes even from Muslim women about things. And, some people used to say, oh, astaghfirullah, you can't talk about that to non-Muslims. And I used to think, dawah's dawah.
Yeah. Subhanallah. Yeah. Subhanallah.
I'm saying it to women, only in front of women. And I'm just sharing that with you because
all they need to do is just like do a Google search and it's all there, because alhamdulillah, everything in the deen is wadah, it's open, it's there, mashallah. Alhamdulillah.